Before we begin tonight's story, do me a small favor. If this is the kind of tale that stirs your imagination, or the kind that helps you drift off to sleep with a little chill down your spine, tap subscribe. You'll never miss another whisper from the past. And while you're here, I'm curious, where are you listening from? Drop your city in the comments. I love knowing how far these stories reach. Maybe your city has its own forgotten demon, waiting for its name to be spoken again. Let's say you're lying there. The lights are low, and your mind is just beginning to settle. But what if just before sleep wraps around you, you hear a whisper from a time so old, even gods have forgotten it? That whisper, it's the voice of demons. Not the kind your Sunday school warned you about. I'm talking about the real ones, the ancient ones, the ones who didn't wait for sinners. They hunted kings, fed on priests, and sometimes, looked just like us. And before you think you know who they are, let me ask, did you ever wonder what demons actually like to eat? I mean, are we talking souls, or something more chewy? Yeah, you're in for a wild one tonight. Now, before we dive too deep, here's a weird little warning. If you've got salted meat in your kitchen, maybe check that it hasn't moved on its own. Why? Well, you'll see. Let's start with a feeling you've had before. You're lying in bed. The room's gone quiet. The day has faded, and you sense it just at the edge of thought that something is watching. Not dangerous, not kind, just ... present. It's not a ghost, not a memory, but a presence. That stillness, that pause before sleep. That's the exact moment ancient people feared most, because that's when the demons arrived. You see, the word demon is misunderstood. Most people think of red skin and horns. But the ancients had far more complicated visions. In the Sumerian world, the first recorded civilization, they spoke of the Utuku. These were spirits who died violent or unjust deaths. They weren't always evil, but they didn't forget, and they didn't forgive. Some wandered, others took. Homes, shadowy corners, tree roots, dark wells. They were born not in hell, but in tragedy, and hunger followed them. Now, let's talk about what they liked to eat. The Mesopotamian Galu demons were wild about one thing: fresh livers. To them, the liver was the house of bravery. To devour a human's liver was to consume their courage. Not metaphor, literal craving. And they didn't just wait around, they came at night, during sickness, after war, in despair. Sound familiar? Meanwhile, in Mesoamerica, the Titsimum demons waited in the sky during eclipses, believing the sun had fallen and that it was open season. They descended for hearts, still beating, warm, sacred. And then there were demons who didn't crave blood at all, like the Japanese eerie ghost-like, sometimes born of betrayal. They fed on unfinished emotion, regret, fear, the kind of feelings you try to forget right before sleep. And just to mess with your mind, here's a question. What if demons never hunted you? What if they hunted your feelings? Now, if you're thinking, okay, but I've never been visited by anything weird, let me ask you this. Ever felt completely drained after seeing a certain person? Not just tired, hollow. Maybe they weren't toxic. Maybe they were just peckish. Let's separate them now by type. First, the beasts. These demons don't talk. They tear. They rot everything they touch. One of the worst was Aztec, from Akkadian myth. His stench boiled rivers. He mated with mountains, fathered stone monsters. You didn't reason with him. You ran if you could. In Slavic stories, Chernobog was more god than demon, but the darkness he controlled felt the same. Disease, rot, hunger. He wasn't cruel, just cold, pure entropy. A reminder that everything good eventually breaks. Now, the bad ones, the cunning, the strategic, the sharp. The Islamic Ifrit was born of smokeless fire. They weren't evil by default. They had personalities, families, codes. They could fall in love or betray it. But once betrayed, they became unstoppable. Think generals, not monsters. And then the scariest of all the ones that walked like us. The Oni of Japan were once human. Warriors, monks, women twisted by grief. They still craved things. Attention, companionship, revenge. But they'd crossed over. Their eyes were wrong. Their joy, unnatural. They laughed too long. Even the Talmud speaks of the Shadim beings, who eat, drink, marry, but cast no shadow. Jewish texts mention them as intelligent, invisible, and present. One old saying says, if your cup falls from the table without wind, and no one touched it, perhaps a Shadim was thirsty. So tonight, as you rest, just ask yourself, what if the reason you felt watched isn't paranoia, but family? Every religion has its demons, and most didn't start that way. Take Baal, once a sky god, worshipped, feared. After Christianity swept through the region, he was called a prince of hell. The Greeks had Pan, wild-horned, laughing. He represented nature's chaos. But then came the horns, the hoofs, and, suddenly, he became the devil's shape. A smear campaign, centuries old. In Hinduism, the Rakshasas weren't just villains. They were warriors, some evil, others noble. They ate flesh. Yes, but they also wrote poetry. Some guarded temples, others ruined them. In Buddhism, Mara isn't a monster. He's a thought, doubt, temptation, the quiet voice that says, you'll never be enough. The Inuit spoke of Ijarak, not quite demon, not quite ghost. It told children not to kill, but to confuse. The child would reappear, but never quite remember who they were, and that's scarier than any scream. Alright, let's lighten the mood slightly. Here are a few facts your textbooks didn't teach you. Ancient Romans nailed iron horseshoes above doors not for luck, but to repel Lamia, a demon who snacked on infants. Tibetans believe that demons are part of the spiritual journey. If you see one during meditation, it means you're close to awakening. The Pontianak, from Southeast Asia, appears as a beautiful woman, until you smell flowers. Then you run, because she's near. Demons hate clean homes. The Babylonian ale demons thrived in filth. Maybe your mom wasn't just yelling about chores, maybe she was saving your life. And in some African traditions, demons don't live in caves or shadows. They live in names. If you forget the demon's name, it grows stronger. If you speak it, you gain control. So the next time you feel something's off, whisper a name you've never heard before. See what answers. Now, here's the question that hits hardest. What if demons weren't always other? What if the line between demon and human was paper thin? Most ancient tales agree on one thing. Demons were born from us, from anger, grief, shame. They are us left unchecked. What if you had the right amount of heartbreak, betrayal, isolation, to cross over? Would you know it? Would you feel the change? Or would it start slow? A desire you can't explain, a hunger you can't name, a joy you take in someone else's pain. What if you've already begun? You've walked through millennia tonight. From ancient rivers to moonless forests. You've met gods who fell, humans who changed, shadows who remember. And if your room feels colder now, maybe it's not just the AC. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. There are hundreds more, some waiting, some waking. And if you're still listening, from wherever you are, whatever city you whispered earlier, thank you. Now close your eyes, but sleep lightly, because the ones who truly feed love a dreamer who leaves the door open.